The movie begins one sunny day with a bright blue sky and cotton-like clouds. A castle stands amidst a green, dense forest. Inside are beautifully lined up chairs with purple covers, each with a toy sitting on it. Sitting on the carpet beside toy medical equipment is a little brown-haired girl who tends to a brown teddy bear. It is the flashback of one of our protagonist's childhood, Princess Pearl. She wants to be a doctor and travel everywhere to give people her care. However, she is set to be a queen, an heir to the throne. Her uncle, the king, comes in and sees the princess playing with her toys. He kneels to give her a boop on the nose, and so does she. But when Pearl mentions her dreams of becoming a doctor, the king dismisses her and guides her into a huge hallway decorated with pictures of all their royal ancestors. The king tells her that her duty is to wear the crown, with one of the frames meant for her on the day she succeeds the throne. Pearl lets out a heavy sigh as her uncle places a crown over her head. In the present day, a knight and a girl in doctor coats ride a plump orange dragon high up the clouds and above a forest. They are the Flying Doctors. In a clearing, they land to help the animals in need. They introduce themselves as Sir Gadabout the Great, Zog, and Princess Pearl. The three have their own expertise. Pearl is good at giving medicines, pills, and vaccinations. Sir Gadabout is an expert in performing operations. Zog is good at assisting the doctors and, of course, flying, but is terrible at landing. Unfortunately, after carrying out their duties in the forest, off they glide over an ocean. They hear a cry, not from afar. On one of the rocks is a mermaid with a light blue tail and blonde hair. She complains that her skin hurts due to sunburn. The doctors gaze down from atop and Zog dives down towards the ocean. Bang, crash, thump, they landed. Pearl gets off onto the rock and jumps toward the mermaid while Zog and Sir Gadabout slide across the rocks. Pearl sits beside the mermaid and examines her blistered red skin. Upon seeing the mermaid's skin, Pearl gets a jar from her bag and applies the special cream. She also instructs the mermaid to wear a hat. The mermaid is hesitant at first, not until Pearl puts a starfish on the hat. Meanwhile, Zog saves a snail from being eaten by a crab. The mermaid happily wears the hat, gives thanks to Pearl, and waves goodbye as the Flying Doctors sped away. As they fly over a forest, the trio sees a unicorn with a large branch stuck on its horns. Bang, crash, thump, they landed. Zog happily runs to the unicorn and removes the branch. Zog proudly shows off the branch and the unicorn is so delighted it prances toward the forest, only for a branch to get caught on its horns again. Gadabout steps in and draws his sword. He gently cuts the extra horn off the unicorn. The unicorn gives thanks to Gadabout and into the forest it goes as the Flying Doctors sped away. As they fly over the Rocky Mountains, the trio hears a lion sneeze. It has caught the flu and is now sick. Bang, crash, thump, they landed. Pearl climbs towards the lion and pets its nose. She examines its mouth and gives it a pill. She advises the lion to keep warm, but the cave was so chilly for a sick lion. Zog has an idea and instructs Gadabout to fetch some wood. Gadabout reluctantly obeys. With a pile of wood, they make a campfire with Zog's fire breath. The lion gives thanks to Zog and sleeps comfortably as the Flying Doctors sped away into the clouds where they get caught up in a storm. As the trio journey through the stormy skies, Zog intently avoids the lightning strikes. When the storm clouds clear, a big palace emerges from down below. It was Pearl's uncle, the king's castle. Pearl decides to greet her uncle and off they fly down the castle. Bang, crash, thump, they landed. Inside, the king poses for a statue sculpture when a loud crash from outside catches his attention. The Flying Doctors land on one of the statues and knock it over. The king immediately goes outside to check and sees his niece, Princess Pearl, with Sir Gadabout and Zog. The king angrily confronts Pearl about her whereabouts. As he sees Pearl wearing a doctor's coat, he bewilderedly asks where are her crown and dress. Pearl stands up and declares herself a doctor. The king replies, emphasizing that princesses cannot be doctors. He seizes Pearl and locks her down in a room inside the palace while the knights chase off Sir Gadabout and Zog. The two escape as they fly away from the castle. Pearl knocks on the door as she cries and pleads to let her out. Many days pass and Pearl practices her role as a princess, sewing pretty cushions and arranging pretty flowers. The governess is tasked with guarding her and teaching her princess stuff. The king arrives and gets a cupcake as he approaches the windowsill. He offers the cupcake to a bird and then eats it after the bird took a few pecks out of it. Meanwhile, Zog and Sir Gadabout are trying everything they can to visit Pearl. One day, the governess enters her room with a burn on her hand. Pearl immediately notices it and makes an ointment to ease the burn, and the governess starts to feel better immediately. In another instance, as Pearl tries to escape through the chimney, the governess appears with her sick cat. Pearl then gives medicine to the cat, which eventually made it feel better. The king then hears them laugh from outside and hurries into the room, feeling that the two did something suspicious. Pearl sees that the king's hand is turning yellow. Outside, Sir Gadabout and Zog try their very best to rescue Pearl, to no avail. In one of their attempts, Gadabout uses a pair of frogs to climb on the castle's wall, but a knight opens a window, and down he falls. Another is trying to enter the castle through the bridge, but fails when a knight pulls the lever lifting the bridge. Sir Gadabout and Zog fall into the pond. After their lectures, before the governess leaves the room, she notices Pearl looking afar. Pearl sees a key on the cat's collar which the governess left and uses it to get out of her room. She is about to escape through an open window when she hears a whimper coming from the king's room. She goes in and sees her uncle lying in bed and is terribly ill. His skin has turned bright orange. Instead of escaping, she decides to help her uncle. She goes into her room and changes into her doctor's coat. She lights up a candle and off to the palace's library she goes. There, she spends many days reading books about illnesses and their cures. Each night, Pearl turns pages to pages trying to find the illness her uncle has, but so far is unsuccessful. One night, when Sir Gadabout and Zog visit her, she reveals to them that the king has fallen ill. As the days pass by, the king's situation also gets worse. He feels no strength from his arms and legs as his skin continues to turn bright orange with bruise-like spots. The illness also makes it hard for the king to speak. Every day, the palace welcomes new doctors to examine the king and determine his illness. More so, find the cure. Even with so many doctors, they simply could not find it. Without the cure, the king's life is at risk. One morning, as Pearl was about to lose hope, she notices two birds of different colors on her windowsill. One is white and one is like the king's color. It appears to be weaker than the other and sickly sneezes. Upon seeing this, something switches up in Pearl's mind and lights up an idea. She goes back to the library to get a specific book about birds and their illnesses. She turns and reads several pages until she sees what she's looking for. She then tells Sir Gadabout and Zog that the king's illness is orange fever and she knows exactly the cure. However, she will be needing several ingredients to make the special medicine. Grated unicorn horn, a mighty lion's sneeze, a few mermaid scales, and little slime, and a half-pound of cheese, Zog adds. She asks the two to fetch all the ingredients very quickly as the life of the king might be in danger. Away the two flew once again. They go back to the lion's den and as expected of Zog, bang, crash, thump, they landed. Sir Gadabout uses a feather to help the lion sneeze. In a few seconds, the mighty lion sneezes and Sir Gadabout catches it with a bag, except some splashes out on his face. The two bid goodbye and fly once again back to the forest. The unicorn happily gives them its unwanted sawn-off horn. Up they fly again above the clouds and back to the ocean where the mermaid's rock is. The mermaid gladly wiggles her tail and some scales come off which Sir Gadabout carefully collects into a glass container. The snails which Zog saved from a crab back then allow them to collect their slimy trails. After collecting all the ingredients throughout the day, Zog flies weakly due to exhaustion. But he must not stop as the king needs their help. With little pats from Sir Gadabout, Zog persistently flies until they reach the castle again. Bang, crash, thump, they landed on Pearl's bedroom balcony. Sir Gadabout hands over the ingredients to Pearl through the windowsill. She gives them thanks as she lays the ingredients on the table. In a large black pot, she mixes the lion's sneeze, the mermaid's scale, the grated unicorn horn, the slime, and a half-pound of cheese. Pearl then scoops a portion onto the medicine bottle. Zog and Gadabout watch as Pearl holds out the finished medicine for the king. Although reluctant at first, Zog hugs Sir Gadabout for the success of their mission. Not long after, the balcony the two stand on falls into the Knight's Keep where an order of knights is resting. The knights chase them off the keep and into the palace grounds where they face more knights. Zog and Sir Gadabout are surrounded. With their teamwork, they manage to fend off some of the knights but appears more of them with more weapons. The knights disarm Sir Gadabout. Inside the castle, Pearl slowly walks into her uncle's room and beside his bed. When the king opens his eyes, he sees Pearl in her doctor uniform smiling at him. He frowns and attempts to scold her, but he is too weak to stand or speak. He lays back down and Pearl pours a spoonful of the medicine for him. But he peevishly refuses and hides under the sheets. He smacks the spoon off of Pearl's hand and grumpily buries himself into the sheets again. With so much patience, Pearl sits beside her uncle's bed and touches his nose, the one he usually does when she was still a child. But the king is so weak he cannot poke Pearl's nose back. With a memory from her niece's childhood, he then accepts Pearl's medicine. The first spoonful makes the king feel much stronger, the second turns his skin back to normal, and the third makes him dance in delight. The king apologizes for locking Pearl up and exclaims that princesses can be doctors. He also invited Pearl's friends for tea. Speaking of friends, the king and Pearl rush to go outside to meet Sir Gadabout and Zog, but they see them tied up together and surrounded by knights. The king orders the guards to free them. The flying doctors have now united again. Dressed in their reputable white coats, Pearl and Sir Gadabout mount Zog, and up they fly away to the skies as the king and the knights wave goodbye.